Record. Welcome everybody, my name is Rob Brown, host of the Accounting Influencers podcast. I'm thrilled to have with me today a really heavyweight panel of leaders of global accounting networks associations. We'll continue in our series of virtual roundtables to discuss what's happening with the accounting world in these very interesting times. So we have Anton and Ben and Martin. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in a moment. But this is a time for strong leadership. It's a time for vision. It's a time for talking and sharing. So whilst we're not asking these gentlemen to share their inner secrets and crown jewels and everything, they've certainly got some interesting perspectives on what's going on and what they're seeing amongst their members. So Anton, can I start with you with a little introduction, sir? Welcome.
So I'm Anton Colella. I'm the global CEO of Moore Global. I've been there for just over 2 years. Prior to that, I was the CEO of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Scotland. My background is I was a high school teacher for many years at the beginning of my career.
I did not know that. I used to teach high school mathematics, Anton. So what was your subject?
Religious education.
Goodness me, we've got a pastor in our midst. Great to have you with us. Martin, quick introduction, sir, and then we'll go to Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. My name's Martin Claspon. I'm the global CEO of IAPA. I've been involved in IAPA for many years, but more recently I was acting CEO for 18 months. I was global chairman for 2 years, and only in the last couple of months I've back been the CEO again of IAPA.
They can't get rid of you, Martin?
I know. For good or bad, they can't get rid of me, yes.
Does IAPA stand for anything in particular?
It used to stand for, I think originally it was International Practicing Accountants. Then it got changed to International Professional Advisors, and now I think we just use the word IAPA as a word.
Got it. And you're a managing partner of an accounting firm yourself, aren't you? So you're definitely on the cutting edge.
Yeah, I'm the managing director of Price Space. So I'm juggling sort of two balls at the moment. So which I enjoy, but we can talk about that later.
Well, it's great to have you with us. And from further afield, judging by the accent, welcome to Ben Lloyd from Baker Tilly. Ben, quick introduction from you.
Thanks, Rob, and thanks for inviting me on this panel. My name's Ben Lloyd. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Baker Tilly International. I've been part of Baker Tilly for now 17 years, originating out of the Australian practice of Baker Tilly International. Progressed to look after Asia Pacific as part of Baker Tilly International, and moved over to London, where I'm currently based, in 2016, and been the COO since then.
Great. Looking like you're enjoying it. Is it as glamorous as it sounds, Ben?
Well, with temperatures today being quite warm, it's actually lovely. It does remind me of home.
Excellent. Well, lovely to have you one and all. And we are in very uncertain times. So I just want to open up with a general question and ask you, and I'll start with you, Anton, on this. Have we ever known anything like this? And how do you feel accountants are coping generally with what's happening? Because they deal with certainty, don't they, Anton? And this is an anxious time for them.
Yeah, I mean, this is unprecedented for all of us as human beings, never mind businesses, our economies, our societies. And, you know, we're generally, over the last number of years, become good at anticipating the unexpected. Our risk assessment, risk management, we all got risk registers of many pages, but none of this appeared on it, really, of the scale that we're experiencing just now. So it is unprecedented. It's unprecedented for our businesses. But yet, we can't deny it, for all the pain and the suffering. There is opportunity here to recalibrate some things, to look at what's strong and what is weak as human beings, to assess the nature of our relationships, well, including the nature of work, where people work, how they work. And for a global organization, how do you operate globally? And all of a sudden we discovered you don't need to be in a plane all the time to run a global organization.
Yeah.
I think you're getting some resonation there with the rest of the panel, Anton, and you bring up some excellent points. Martin, you've been doing this game a while. We've had the 08-09 global meltdown and economic recession there, but have we known anything like this, and how do you feel accountants are coping?
Well, I think, agree with Anton. It's nothing, you didn't expect this, completely different. Very quickly, are accountants doing okay? I think they are. I think generally they are. There's good and bad examples. But I think, if I'm being honest, during the months of February and March, when it became really clear that this was going to be a pandemic and it came out from Asia, from China or Asia, or wherever it came from, and people want to dispute it, wherever it came from. But when it became clear that it was coming and it was going to spread, I'm honest enough to say that I sort of sat at home thinking, this is going to be tough. And yeah, and how am I going to cope with this? And how am I going to sort of help the IAPA member firms? And how am I going to sort of do the right thing? So I think it's a challenge, and you look at yourself. But then I do think, and you look back, and then when the UK went into lockdown on March the 23rd, it's 3 months the UK's been in lockdown, and other parts of the world's been even longer and coming out of it. But generally, I look back and think, actually, I think we, as an industry, I think most of us have done okay. We've done well. And I think there's been good communication there. Not being perfect. I think I've made mistakes. IAPA's made mistakes. But I think we've done it because we tried to do the right thing. And we try to do right. And you correct it as quickly as you can, and you move forward. And as long as you've got good communication and you're honest and you talk from the heart, I think you can get away with little mistakes as you operate in a scenario which no one's ever done before.
It's a fair point. There's no playbook for this, is there?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate your honesty, Ben. You've got a couple of grey hairs like me. Have you done anything like this? And how are your members coping?
Yeah, look, I think by and large they're coping well. I think it is unprecedented, as Anton has mentioned. You talk about leadership, you talk about grey hairs, and that leader and the experience. Well, I'm not sure any of us have ever faced this before, and certainly when you speak to managing partners of firms, they're in the same boat. I think particularly here, I mean, you've got a number of other things at play, whether it's Brexit, whether it's a lot of the social unrest at the moment as well, which is causing greater levels of anxiety and also points of inflection. We're looking at ourselves, we're looking internally as what is it that we are and who we are going to be for, and a lot of those questions are coming out now. But I think by and large, Baker Tilly member firms are doing quite well. They are part of their communities. They are part of and have long-standing clients, and clients are obviously going to go through their advisors and look for that support, that honest support in how they get through this and get through together. Yeah. The importance of listening and just being there for your clients is paramount.
Yeah, we're going to learn a little bit more about that as we dip into things. But Ben, just give us a feel for the size of the network and the firms that you represent, just to give us an idea.
Yeah, so we have 147 territories. It's 126 member firms globally with about 34,500 partners and staff across 4 regions. Revenues at the moment just shy of $4 billion US. We didn't quite get there this year, but certainly looking for. I'm not sure we'll get there this year, of course, but yeah, probably, as far as that middle market's concerned, we obviously work closely with others like More Global, etc. So
yeah, well, just a small concern ran out of a back bedroom then, really.
True.
Okay, well, thanks for those initial comments, gents. I'm interested in who's supporting you, and Martin, I'll circle back to you on this one. Yep. You are leaders of leaders, and at times like this, firms are leaning on you, not just for economic and commercial advice, but as counselors, therapists, mentors, confidants, if you like. I'm sure you're fielding all kinds of questions. So people are just intrigued. How do you cope under pressure? What keeps you strong, and who's helping you in all of this? Martin?
Okay. I've got to admit, when you say leaders are leaders, God, that puts extra pressure on me. Because, wow. But I think I tend to be a person. I mean, I look at the glass half full. I see opportunities. I like the challenge. So personally, the more difficult the issue is, the more challenging it is, I think the more I get up for it.
Okay.
But don't get me wrong, and I look at the glass half full and I tend to smile and I like to have a really good time. You do reflect and you think, oh, this is tough. And you do need sometimes, and you do need, me personally, what I need, we're all different personalities and we have different sort of traits to ourselves, but what I need is, for me, I need to have good friendships. Family is really important. Good friends. I love sports. So I'm a big West Ham fan. So I'm a bit disappointed that we lost last night. So sport, and I've got, if you look at me, I don't participate, I watch sport. So get watching sport, good family life, good friends, and I'm lucky enough that I can able to turn off. So when I finish work, I can turn off quite quickly. However, yeah, there is, of course, there's always going to be doubts there.
Yeah.
But as long as I think that as long as I'm doing it for the right reasons, as long as the decisions are right, as long as I can look myself in the mirror and think that's, yeah, tough conversation, but actually it's the right answer and it's the right decision to do and the right direction to go, I think that makes life a lot easier.
Sure.
You can deal with tough decisions and tough discussions if you know it's right and you've gone through all the thought processes to make sure it's definitely the right thing to do.
Yeah, you've got to be able to sleep at night, haven't you?
Yeah, and as long as you've got the good support mechanism around who you can talk to and confide in as well, and I think, yeah, and Ben, you mentioned community. If you've got a good community around you to make sure that you're okay, I think that helps.
Yeah.
If I was on my own, God, it would be tough.
And we're going to talk in a minute about why it's important that accounting firms are members of something bigger than themselves and how you're supporting them. Martin, very quickly, just give us a feel for, and this is not about who's the biggest here, but give us a feel for the size of the IAPA network and where you cover.
Yeah. I would concede we're the smallest out of the three here, or
sure.
Definitely. But
small but perfectly formed.
Well, I wish. So IAPA, we're the International Association of Accountants and Lawyers. We've got just under 200 member firms. We're in about 70 countries. We're exactly 40 years old. We've got, I think our total income is it's about $2 billion US. I think we've got 3 or 4 very large members, and then we've got a large group of small to medium-sized member firms. In total, I think 400 offices and about 1,500 partners.
Great.
In that group.
You've said that before.
And IAPA, sorry, say again?
You've said that before.
Have I? Oh, well, yeah. Well, I think we all remember the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
You need to know the numbers. But as an accountant, if you don't know the numbers, you've got a bit of a challenge. Yes. So I think, but what I love about IAPA, and this is not, is that the members, I think they really love you said the word community. I think we trust each other. And when we get together, and I think one of the challenges is, when will we all get together? I think we can get together in Zoom meetings and virtually, but when we get together, I think we do share. And I really values and sharing it, and the ethos is really important. For me, that's massive.
Great.
And we must have members who believe in that as well.
Indeed. Anton, I've known you a little while now, and you come across as a very calm individual, but we need our batteries charging, don't we, at times like this when you've been leaned into. So where are you getting your mental strength and what's keeping you going here?
I've been fortunate. I've been a CEO for almost 18 years in 3 different roles, so I've had a lot of exposure to leadership. The reality is, if you're going to be a leader, you're exposed to stress, anxiety on a regular basis. If you don't want it, don't go into the job. So you have to learn to cope with it. And the thing about it is, anxiety and stress is highly infectious. And the impact it has on an organization, if from the very top, you can't handle it. So there is an imperative, virus or not, to be able to learn to deal with that. I'm blessed with a great family. You get time to pray and meditate and put things in the right order in life and what's really important. But I've learned over the years that you need good companions. Good companions you can talk to, who are with you, you can depend on, who'll also say things as it is. But the reality is it will be a lonely place. And you have to learn to be a good companion to yourself and learn how to make decisions, because one of the things that steals peace from an organization in the middle of a crisis is indecision, panicking, and again, that's highly infectious. And I'm a great believer that the CEO is the one that should bring peace of mind to an organization, but he or she has got to start with themselves.
Yeah, that's very good. Ben, you resonating with that?
Yeah, I am. I think the words that really come to mind for me is trying to maintain perspective and a balance. I think as as any C-level person in an organization, whether you're the chief executive or otherwise, you were bombarded left, right, up, down, at sort of all hours of the night, but particularly in our roles, international role, there's an emergency somewhere. So you've got to accept that every day you're going to have to deal with something. The pandemic throws up obviously wider and more widespread challenge, but you've got to maintain that perspective. And I think it's also important, you've got to have people, companions, as Anton said, but people that are going to be true to you as a person and call you out when you're out of line. You know, say to you, hey, no, that's not on. You know, that sort of thinking, or that you've got to come back to earth. And I think having those people that you can trust, respect, obviously, to say that to you, and that might be your wife or your husband or your partner. It might be your children. It might be people in your community or your wider family group. Making sure that you've got those reality checks every day, I think, is important. I think for me, what has got me through is also being able to disconnect. I like running. I like being physically active. You know, healthy mind and all that sort of thing, I think, is very important. I mean, we are bombarded, and I think being able to just let go of some of that stress, whether it's watching West Ham win, I hope.
That lets go of stress, does it?
Yeah, or otherwise, or just going down to the park and sitting in the park and a picnic, just to get away from it all, because it can overwhelm you. And when you are overwhelmed, people sense that, and you've got to be cool, you've got to be calm, you've got to be clear in what your decision making and what you're saying to your team.
Very good point. So I just wrote down the phrase "call you out" because some leaders I've spoken to that lead networks, they have an opposite view of, they don't necessarily want to be challenged. They want, I wouldn't say yes people around them, but they want people that have got their back, that are ready to endorse their decisions and get behind their vision. Now, that's not necessarily calling people out, is it?
No, it's not. I think it's, you know, when I say calling out, it's, I think, challenging a decision. As long as that decision, if that is the decision that you take, is followed through by the team, by the family, by whatever it may be, then that is going to be okay. But I think healthy challenging, just trying to poke holes in something, is not a bad thing. And sometimes if someone does feel that you respect very strongly about a decision or a direction that you're going, you need to take that on board. Now, whether you decide to go down that path or not, that will be your decision, because that's what your role is.
Yeah.
So,
any further thoughts, fellas, on recharging your batteries, Martin?
No, I was just going to follow on for what Ben said. I mean, a number of years ago when I first took on sort of a CE role, a very trusted friend of mine said to me, actually, within the organisation, make sure you have at least 2 or 3 people who will always be completely honest with you. You will pick up the whispers, because once you're the CEO, you might be at the top of the pile, but do you really know what's going on?
Yeah.
Do you really know what's happening? And there might be too many yes people there who just agree with you because you're the CEO and they think it's good for their career. And I thought that was a really good bit of advice. Someone who can just come up to you and say to me, Martin, I think you've got this wrong, or Martin, I think your attitude is wrong here. I think you're not listening. So someone who can actually really poke and make you realise that actually, because sometimes we can get a little bit, become too important, and we think we're in charge and this is the way we got to go. And sometimes you need someone to say, actually, I think you're not performing well here.
I'm smiling, Martin, because my wife often says to me, Rob, you've been an arse. You've been a knob.
Okay, I wasn't going to swear.
I'm trying to keep it clean, but you do. It's refreshing. Okay. And no, we appreciate that honesty. So, yeah, we've got to keep recharging our batteries, absolutely. Anton, let me come to you on this one. Let's talk about why firms need to be a member of an organisation bigger than themselves, and what you're doing to support your member firms. Just before we do that, can you give us a sense of the more global empire and what we're dealing with here?
Sure. So we're just over 3 billion in revenue, 110 countries, 250 firms, 30,000 people, and growing, which is great. Formerly known as Moore Stephens, a long-established name in the professional services environment. You know, it's at times like this that the value of a network or an association really comes to the fore. I mean, we have a lot of firms come and ask us about joining, and I always listen to the first questions. Some of them ask the first question, how much will I get in referrals?
Yeah.
How will I get here? What will I get there? And in reality, a network that works well, or an association that works well, is characterized by a family of givers, in my view. That's where you really experience success. It's not always necessarily the big number, because you have a big number, the culture is not necessarily great. So you want to create a culture and an environment where people feel that they get support, they get loved, they get cared for, they have companions with them on the journey of life and their business. And at times like this, the value of a network really comes to the fore. And we've really seen a bonding going on right across our network. We've always been characterized by good relationships, but the depth of the relationships, the intimacy now, and the depth that's going below the managing partners is greatly heartening for us and for the future. But to be honest, we all need companions. We said this earlier on about how we cope with our own stress. I think one of the benefits that a network can provide to its firms is help them get peace of mind and perspective. Hearing the stories of others, global perspective, helps you see where others are further ahead in the journey than you are. And I actually think at times like this, if there's a firm not in a network, they need to sit down and evaluate the future, because why miss the opportunity and the benefit?
Yeah. And Ben, I'm thinking of the analogy of a coal fire, and you've got a roaring fire there, but when one of the coals comes out, it gets cold very quickly, doesn't it? It just loses all of that heat of everyone else. So
Yeah.
how are you supporting your member firms at this time? And why do they need to be part of something?
Well, I mean, I'm all over what Anton said with that question of value. I mean, the value proposition that networks, alliances, associations provide their members. I mean, you know, it's everyone has their own value proposition, but largely they're all the same, if you will.
Sure.
But you know, in terms of those firms and those smaller, whether they're sole practitioners, smaller firms that are looking for that collegiate, that community, that ability to collaborate, I think what networks, associations, and alliances provide in terms of that structure and why they should be, it's really around that coming together, being able to talk things through, looking at joint opportunities, looking at training, sharing ideas, creating value as you go through together. There's that, you know, that ability to be able to upward, downward refer business. And we get that question all the time from prospective members. How many referrals am I going to get? Well, you're not the firm for us. Thank you very much. We're going to move on. You know, there's a holistic view on this. And I think what networks stand for these days is very different to what networks and associations stood for 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I think it's changing at such a rapid rate.
How do you mean, Ben? How are they different?
Well, I just think the challenges now that we face, I mean, technology, we can all attest to what has technology done to our businesses, our members, our networks and associations. I think it's had a huge impact. Those members that don't necessarily or have not necessarily invested in those areas, I think now, particularly with the current climate, with the pandemic, have been showing up. I think your ability to tack into bigger organization and the buying power around that, one of the value propositions that we talk about is what we can do for you from a technology perspective, software perspective. We have, you know, global enterprise agreements, etc., which as a sole practitioner or a smaller firm, you're not going to be able to realize those benefits, if you will.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I think where we're looking to support them, it's pragmatic ideas, it's pragmatic issues. It's allowing them to come together to talk to one another. For us, like Martin, like Anton, the strength of networks is around the relationships. We haven't had conferences this year. No one has, because of the travel. Now, that was a major loss for our guys. And they're saying, well, we can't connect. We can't have those after dinner beers or at dinner or coffee breaks and chats and do business and talk about this and that. So what do you do? But I would say at the moment, even though we have physical distancing, not social distancing, but physical distancing, I think we are, if not as close as we've ever been. Zoom has been wonderful. Teams has been, the technology platforms have been wonderful, but it's brought us together.
Yeah.
We're meeting more frequently. We're talking about contemporary issues. We're not having to wait for board meetings or for council meetings or committee meetings. We can just get on the phone or get on Zoom and do what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Share ideas, be very, very responsive, and then start looking at what are those proactive opportunities as a network or otherwise.
Yeah, and Martin, that's come through quite strongly from Anton and Ben, this relationship thing. I've just written down the word curiosity. Members are really wanting to know what else is everyone else doing? What are you thinking? What are you saying? How are you coping with things? And just not getting isolated, but getting some perspective has been mentioned and what's going on. So how are you supporting your members and why do they need to plug into something?
Yeah, I mean, regarding the question of the importance of a network, association, alliance, yeah, I agree with Anton and Ben. Now, more than any other time, it's really important. We talked about us as CEOs. Yeah, is it lonely at the top? I think, yeah, businesses can be lonely if they're not in an association. And I don't want to repeat what Anton and Ben have said because it's totally true. But one of the words which I tend to use is the word family. I think as a family, you want to help each other. You want to, the long established members want to share their experience to the newer members and the up and coming partners who are coming in through the member firms. So this concept of sharing and helping is even more important during times like now. And it is interesting. Even I mean, I've always been a big fan of technology and IT, but even I'm surprised how many virtual meetings I've been having with members and how well it's worked and how well we've shared information and communication. I've often shared at IAPA conferences details of what the future will be like for professional firms and what offices will like and how we engage with our members. And you can see people thinking, yeah, but that's 3-5 years in the future, 10 years in the future. Actually, COVID-19 has made it happen a lot quicker, many of those things. And the way we'll interact with our clients, the way we'll interact with our members with their clients and how we interact with our members and how members interact, it's going to change completely going forward. Well, and it's speeded up the process of the future, which is great.
Yeah, I'll keep your powder dry on that because we are going to ask you for what you feel is coming up.
Oh, sorry.
I've just written down the word propinquity. Propinquity. It's a great word. I might be educating you here, which would be rare for you wise gentlemen. But propinquity is the closeness that people feel to one another. And it's a factor of three things. It's a factor of frequency. And we know that in COVID, we are talking more frequently. It's a factor of familiarity, which is to the degree to which we are willing to share stuff and be more vulnerable. And because everyone's hurting, we're getting a lot more vulnerability and familiarity. And the third one is friendliness. We are just being more open with one another. So it creates propinquity, and video is one of the key drivers of propinquity because it's not an email, it's not text, it's not a phone call. You see everything, and you see people with kids running around in the pajamas and the noise and the building and everything else, and it's just so real. So yeah, some great thoughts. Any final thoughts there, fellas, on how you support your members and staying relevant?
I mean, the only other thing I was going to say, I think we still need to make sure as associations and networks that we're giving members what they want. And not
assuming what they want, but
assuming what they want. Yeah, so it's going back to lots of communication, lots of listening, and reminding ourselves that we still got to give, I love the word value, we've still got to give value to our members.
Yeah.
And this is not a time for us to disappear for 3-6 months. It's a time to be more on the front foot. And the value might change. What that value is for the members might change now compared to just 6 months ago. But we still need to find out what that is and then do our best to provide it.
Yeah. Ben, were you going to add something there?
Oh, I was just going to add, I think part of what we've discovered too is through any uncertainty, people like to have a story, if you will, a structure to how are you going to get us through this?
A narrative,
A narrative.
Yeah.
And we certainly worked hard at trying to develop a narrative per se around a 3-phased approach. You know, you're going through we call it now, next, and tomorrow. And that's in line with our strapline, now for tomorrow. And it was now getting through that initial front of, oh my goodness, the world's collapsing, you know, this is survival mode, it's crisis, etc. Getting over that, getting to grips with that, then moving into the next. So what are those opportunities starting to see from clients who are saying they need help with this, and this, or other opportunities that arise that we didn't know about beforehand. And so we think, wow, okay, that's interesting. And then into that tomorrow, and really, as Martin and Anton have said, it's around, well, what is the future of tomorrow look like? What is the future of the office? What is the future of clients? Real estate. There's a whole raft of different areas that come, and what is sustainable? And where does things like, you know, diversity and inclusion and all these other things, how does that all fit into as a network? This is, you know, with people being our number one asset. It's
We need a 3-hour panel here, Ben, don't we?
Yeah.
Really juicy topics. But you do lead us nicely into the next question I want to ask. And you alluded to it there, in that in some ways we've got to have one foot in the now and cope with what's happening. And Anton, I'll come to you first on this. On one foot in the next, you know, what is coming up? What does the world look like as far as we can see? Because there's a lot of uncertainty. So given everything that's going on, what opportunities do you see, Anton, for growth and recovery for your member firms?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the fundamental duties of leadership is to provide vision.
Yeah.
Without vision, people perish. It's quite simple as that.
That's very biblical. As a committed Christian, I know exactly where that comes from.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's I studied theology, so I often refer to it. So yeah, if an organization doesn't have vision, it will perish soon enough, and it will wither on the vine.
That's the narrative that Ben was alluding to.
Yeah, that's right. So, but the thing is, you don't give vision in times of peace. You particularly give vision in times of turmoil, turbulence, uncertainty. And the uncertainty that we have just now is uncertainty. So in the midst of that, I think we have an obligation as leaders to give that hope for the future. And I really believe there is hope, because we're hitting rock bottom in a lot of places. There's some people that have felt the bottom that have never felt it before in their businesses. And I'm talking about clients and even some of the firms. This is a place they've never been before. And I think those who have had some experience, and there's no experience of this and we can draw on, but experience of turmoil, have to point to a positive future. It may be a different reality, but it's one that has one of opportunity, and there is optimism. It's not superficial, it is substantial. And often people are looking for a beacon, a torch, a mountaintop that they can get to, because one of the things I've seen at a lot of the firms just now is their heads are down the detail. How are we going to get back to work? How are we going to keep our staff? How are we going to get out of furlough, cash flow? Whilst they do that, we've got to keep pointing to a mountaintop. And I'm absolutely certain there will be an economic reconfiguration in some areas. Some of our economies will change and shift, but we will recover. The fundamental truth of human and business resilience is there. We've had experience of this in the last 10 years. We need to keep going back to that and to reiterate that. And the key for us is readiness. Are you ready? Because at some point they have to lift their heads up. And the challenge is now in the midst of all of this saying, are you ready for this, and the scenarios which are not completely drawn out, scenarios of opportunity for them.
But Anton, if you look at the accountants as a breed, how well did they learn from the 08-09 crash? How adaptable are they as a species in being able to get future ready? Because they've got a lovely business model. There's a bit of complacency and arrogance around. Maybe this will shake them up in the way they need to be shaken.
Absolutely agree, Rob. I think one of the things about accountancy firms is their business tends to be pretty constant. Compliance work, audit, tax. In good times and bad, you need your accountant. The problem is that's not the certainty for the future as things become automated and things change. So what this is exposing in some firms is leadership gaps in succession planning, lack of innovative ideas, lack of challenge of the status quo. So what, in the absence of that in some firms, I think one of the things that a network can bring is challenging that by exposing people to other ideas, particularly other ideas of young innovative. You don't have to be young to be innovative, but younger firms that are more dynamic, that are taking risks and are venturing for the future, particularly in the development of new service lines. Some firms will not survive. It's clear. I mean, I don't want that to happen, but it's clear this has been a test beyond all tests in the last 20 years. But for those that are up for it, huge opportunity.
Yeah, you bring up some great points. I've already heard of award-winning firms here in the UK that have gone out of business. But I love your analogy of the lighthouse, and you only see the lighthouse, the beacon, in the dark, in the gloom, in the despair. You don't see it when times are good. And Martin, where do you feel the opportunities are for growth and recovery here?
Yeah, I mean, what Anton said, I mean, Anton explained it so well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, what's big, you mentioned the financial crisis, 2008, 2009. I mean, many recessions, and including that one, sort of happened overnight. It surprised people. It just happened within days and weeks. We were in it. So know some, one or two clever people saw it coming, but the majority didn't. This one, it's coming. We're going into it. It hasn't happened yet, really. We still got, you mentioned, many companies are using furloughing. They've got civil loans, bounce back loans. They're not paying their tax and VAT. The real economic challenge is in front of us. And I'm quite hard on this, and I'm hard on our members and even my own firm. If you're not prepared for it, when you know it's coming, like, you got to look at yourself.
More fully,
actually, there's no excuse. This is not just happened overnight and it's coming. You know that over the next, in the UK, in Europe and globally, the next 12, 18, 2 years at least, it's going to be really difficult economically.
Yeah.
We know in the UK it's going to be the worst economic crisis ever, and it might be the same in other parts of the world. So you do need to prepare for it. And if you're going to prepare for it by just cutting costs and putting your head down, you ain't going to survive. And you're not giving our members, you're not giving their clients real good advice. And as Anton said, they need a vision. You need to give them assurance, reassurance. You've got to tell them, actually, when we get past this, because there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, there's always the lighthouse light, we are going to get there, and the good firms are going to really prosper and do fantastically well. And make sure that you're that good firm. But you've got to do the changes now. If you've not done it already, you can't change the past, but you can change today. So do it now.
That's partly answering my next question on the future, but you can expand on that in just a moment, Martin. But Ben, Martin brings up a great point. In times like this, if we're going to get through this, we're going to need accountants, because whatever the question is, pain, heartache, insolvency, projects, opportunities, the accountant is the answer. They are that trusted advisor. So we're going to have to lean into them. They are going to need to step up. There's more call for advisory than ever before. So where do you see the opportunities in the next few months to get out of this?
Yeah, I think there are plenty of opportunities. I think certainly some obvious ones that have come through. I think you sort of lean into that relationship, that lean into the advisory piece that we have with our clients, both old and new. I think, we're treating these new opportunities sort of green shoots. We call them green shoots opportunities. And around that, I mean, certainly I think the restructuring recovery side of things is fairly obvious. I think everyone understands that. But there are some other interesting ones that do come out as a result. HR consulting, as an example, we're starting to see a bit of dialogue around that within our members around, our people, our number one asset, our people. By and large, I would say we're very, very happy that many of our firms did not look at, mass redundancies, not that we're seeing with other, big four, etc. That they're looking at trying to take the hit at the partner level. When times are good, partners take the profits. When times are bad, don't just pass them on to your staff. You try and keep that on. And so, we're starting to see that. So I think, that investment in the future, I think we're seeing a lot of our members now actually seeing this as an opportunity to recruit for the future, and about getting key positions or key areas that they may not have been able to get to, but the pandemic has provided a bit of an upside from that perspective, because you're getting some really quite good talent coming onto the market. I think if you look at LinkedIn and other sort of passive recruitment channels, you're starting to see a real strength in terms of the number of CVs and the quality of those people. So from that perspective, I think we're starting to see real opportunities. There is no doubt in my mind, though, that it is also going to lead to greater levels of M&A between firms. I'm not saying at network level, global level, but possibly. But certainly at firm levels, when you're going to have firms, you know, the managing partners of firm A and firm B, they've known each other, they went to school together, it's times like this where they do look at, hey, we should come together, we should combine our efforts to alleviate the pain. We should look at collaborate in a more formal fashion. We should look to do things. So it presents opportunities, I think, and that sunrise, if you will, that's coming through and we're starting to see has really helped. I mean, for me personally, when I look at the hope and the inspiration, I'm just in awe, and I know Anton and Martin would say the same thing about the resilience of some of our firms, not all of them, but most of our firms, the resilience that they're showing through this, the willingness to listen, the willingness to take on other ideas, frankly, probably because they don't have an option. They have to look at it now. I heard someone say, you know, the impossible has now become probable because of what the pandemic has done.
Yeah.
So people are willing to think more outside of the box, and they're looking at those opportunities to see how we're going to take that forward.
Yeah.
What are we looking for to assist our staff, our clients, etc.?
Yeah. Anything to add there, fellas, on opportunity?
I think the only thing I just want to emphasise what Ben said. For me, I think the biggest opportunity for our member firms, and I think there will be the ability for them to acquire other firms and merge, but I think the big one is going to be, this is lateral hires, taking on really good people at senior level or newly qualified or good people who feel that they've not been treated fairly by their existing firm.
Yeah.
Either they've been made redundant, maybe, or their peers have been made redundant, and they've not liked the way that firm has treated them or their peers, and therefore they're looking elsewhere. And I think good firms who are behaving well, treating their team members fairly, treating their clients fairly, giving a vision, and actually going out there and just recruiting really good people, which might be a cost now, but blimey, when we get to the light, they will really make the firm explode in a positive way.
Well, it has been said we're going to have a very fluid labour market now, as a lot of good people come into the labour market from firms that have said we can't keep you on. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask you for your final thoughts, fellas, and cast a thought to the future. And Anton, I'm going to start with you. You always say something wise and profound. So get your crystal ball out. We know that working from home has been adopted fairly well, so that might be some kind of new normal. Will firms go back to big offices? We know there's going to be less travel, at least for the next 12, 18 months. The vaccine is not in sight anytime soon. We've just got used to this new way of working. So I'm asking you, with the loans that have been taken out being payable in 2021, with the tax bills that have been deferred, we're in for a tough time. But what do you see coming up for the next 12, 24 months?
And I just see need, human need, business need. It's always with us. It just comes in different shapes and forms. The question is, are we prepared to meet the need and adapt quickly enough to do that? So I don't have a crystal ball about some of the realities of what you've described, how they're going to happen, the measure in which they're going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's just another chapter of human needs, and business need, and our job is to adapt. But one of the things is that I think now that will prepare for that and probably produce long-term loyalty from new clients. One of the things at times of suffering is, you can smell sincerity and authenticity a mile. Clients do, human beings do. If we do not have an inherent authenticity about what we are as human beings, as a human organization, the way we care, that's demonstrated daily in the way we look after our own people, we start there, start at home. If we don't have authenticity and sincerity, it will become manifest at times when clients are suffering. When they suffer, they need their authenticity and sincerity all the more. They need to feel loved and cared for. We need to be bearers, not just of truth in difficult circumstances, but peace of mind that helps them and gives them the anchor of hope to survive and see a possible future for themselves. So what that future is going to be, I don't know, but I tell you one thing, I want us to be part of shaping that future and developing relationships that are going to last a generation.
Very good. Martin, I'm reminded of the definition of trust, and they say it's a blend of character and competence. Competence is obviously being reliable and being able to do the stuff you're asked to do, but character comes from, as Anton was alluding to, intention. What's really on your heart? Have you got a heart for people, and people can detect sincerity? So it's a really good angle. What do you see coming up in the future, Martin? We are in for a rough ride, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think how Anton explained it, and I love that phrase, need and whatever. I think that's it's another word for value, but probably a more profound word. And I really like that.
He's good like that.
He's brilliant. Can I copy that? Because I think I'm going to. No, I think, I'm going to say it's going to be unbelievably tough economically. Our clients are going to be struggling financially, emotionally. And I think, and I don't want to criticise banks, but many years ago, the banker was the trusted advisor in the local town, the local village, and they've moved away from that. And I think it is us. We are the trusted advisor. I think, and they trust us in respect to their financial needs and support, but I think they also do trust us because we built up that relationship and that trust in looking after their family wealth. And they talk to us, and I think we need to be available. So I don't know what's going to happen in the next 12, 18, 24 months. And anybody who says they know exactly which direction we'll be going, I don't believe them. Yeah. Other than it's going to be tough. And I think we need to be listening. I think we do need to provide a vision to give that confidence and reassurance that there is a light. But that vision has got to be, what's the word? Adaptable. As things change, the way you see the future is going to change.
It's agility, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's got to be open-minded. And one of the things I think, you've got to keep on listening, listen to clever people, listen to clients and clever clients, and go to different sectors and industries and what they're doing, and bring it back and think, that could help our members, or that can help our clients of our members, and to share. And just share as much as possible, but listen as much as possible, and then share as well. And keep your eyes open of, a big surprise might happen, and all of a sudden direction we're going in a different way, not completely different, but in a slightly different way. Yeah. So textbooks from 20 years ago isn't going to help us today because things have changed. So I think just got to keep on learning. There's a phrase which I don't know who said it, I'm copying this phrase. The really good people today are the ones who can they've learned, unlearn and relearn. And we've got to relearn how we do things going forward. And at this moment in time, I think we've just got to relearn even quicker because it's going to change even quicker.
It is a really good point. There's a great quote from a guy called Eric Hoffer that said, the mark of an educated person is the degree to which they are willing to let go of an old idea to embrace a new idea. And that speaks to the unlearning that you're talking about. Yeah. Well, Ben, last word from you on the future. We are coming into some kind of new world. We know not what, but I'm sure you have all the answers.
I wish I did. I'd be charging you if I did. But look, I'm not a big fan of the term "the new normal" because I normal suggests that it's where we are. Because I think this is an evolving platform that we're now involved in.
It's a new playbook.
It's a new playbook, and we don't have the rules. We're creating the rules as we go forward. There's, we use the term agility. You mentioned that, Rob, before. I mean, we use that a lot within our network. Well, how agile are we? When all's said and done, how agile are we?
How proactive are we? Words like this come out, don't they? But what do they mean?
What do they mean? It's good to say those words, but do you actually believe in those? Do you actually abide by those rules? So for us, I think it's around that. What does that look like? I mean, I often say, don't let a crisis go to waste. One of the things that we're saying within our network is to say, guys, we don't want to go back to pre-COVID days. We shouldn't be aiming to get back to that normal. Yes, we want a new normal per se, but we need to tear it up. We need to say, hey, look, this is a unique opportunity. We've never had this before. We can we have control really over where we want to be, who we want to be, where we want to play, and who we want to play with. So why would you talk about what happened pre-COVID and let's focus on the future? Let's really lift that level of enthusiasm, change the language, the narrative, as I mentioned before. We've ruled out any communications around talking about crisis and survival. And so little words that make a big difference. Change the language, look more, into the future, look at what we can achieve together. So for us, it really is around taking the opportunity to make those changes now. I think the importance of collaboration, the community, getting back to conferences and getting back to meeting face-to-face with clients. Yes, we want that. That's absolutely. But guess what? That is going to be overlaid now with other deeper levels of communication, whether it be via Zoom or other things. To Anton's point right from the beginning, do we need to travel as much? Well, no, I don't think so. I don't need to jump on a plane and get over to New York to go and see someone. I can just do a Zoom call. So there's a lot of that, the sustainability piece, as I mentioned, diversity, there's a lot of that sort of stuff going on. And that is going to shape the future. That is going to shape who we as a network is and will be going forward, working with other networks as well.
Well, gentlemen, these have been incredible insights. I'm just going to ask you for 30 seconds of some inspiring words of encouragement for the accountants and the leaders watching and listening. Just while you're thinking of that, there is a great book I was reminded of when Anton was talking about this. It's called Give and Take by Professor Adam Grant. And I've got a summary of it. I will share the PDF with you later. But it talks about three people. The people that give without receiving, and they just give because they love giving. There are the neutral people. I'll give you something if you give me something. So it's that quid pro quo. And then there are the takers. Where can I get the referrals? Where can I take stuff? And Professor Adam Grant shows in his book, Give and Take, that it's the givers that win. It's the givers that ultimately come through. And I think that's come through really strongly in this panel discussion we've had. So, Martin, I'm going to start with you, and then we'll go to Ben, and we'll let Anton send us out with some words of inspiration. But what 30 seconds call to action would you say to the accountants and the leaders watching?
I think this is a wonderful situation we're in order to change, to bring in the change. I mean, to reset our associations and networks, for the member firms to reset, to get rid of the grit in the business is a phrase I use, or the barnacles on the bottom of a boat, all the things which slow things down, all the things which is irritating, all the things which wasn't right, but one day we'll change it. During this period of lockdown, this is the time to do it.
Well, we can change really quickly, can't we? As a result of it.
And we proved that. So this is the time to do all the things you wanted to do to really make the firms and the members and the associations and networks better. Do it now.
Brilliant.
And you get far less resistance now. I think people are really open-minded to it now.
If not now, then when? Absolutely. Yeah. Ben, final call to action from you for the leaders watching.
Yeah, I think keep an open mind. I think this is a unique opportunity. Whether we will have one like this again, I'm not so sure. One might say, I hope not to this level, but certainly keep an open mind. You've got to look at where those opportunities lie. You've got to listen, you've got to hear, you've got to take that and put it into some sort of vision, as Anton mentioned before. I think it is extremely important. So taking the opportunity, listening to your clients, listening to your members, listening to your staff, I think is critical, because ultimately it's the actions that we take now that will be judged in 5-10 years times. And I for one don't want to look back in that and say I could have done more, or I should have done more, or we could have as a group done more. So for me, it's take the opportunity.
Very good.
Grasp the opportunity.
And I loved your phrase earlier, don't let a crisis go to waste. There is so much learning and experience in what we're going through, isn't there? Yeah, brilliant. Well, Anton, it comes to you then to send us on our merry way with some words of inspiration and hope.
Well, I would only use one word, and it's companionship. If you don't have it, go find companions. Whether you're running a practice or you're a business leader, anybody watching this, go find companions for the journey. Let's be good companions to our people. We talked about the mental health, the stresses, anxieties. Let's be companions with them and walk with them. See, for our clients and their own anxieties just now, we want them to know that we're going to be companions for them, not just to the difficult times or the better times. We want to be companions for life with them. Because I think this is one of the fundamental human needs that's been crying out in our loneliness and isolation. The beauty of companionship. Why not in business? Look at this experience today. 3 leaders could be competitors, but there's a wonder of companionship and sharing our stories.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And just in closing, I just put down how strong it is that leaders are vocal at this time, that they are present, that they are visible, that you are modeling what you want to see in your members, which is here collaborating and sharing. And it's only by doing that we can be the one that people remember when the fires go out and the dust settles and the waters are clear and we get back to any kind of life after this. You kind of people will be the ones that they remember because you did stuff like this. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you for such an amazing panel today. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I've had a few smiles from you, so it sounds like you have too. But just hearing what other leaders have to say, it must be interesting for you guys too. So I'm going to leave the Zoom room open for just a moment if you want to carry on, but I'm going to stop the recording. And thank you so much for your contribution today.
Thank you.